Okay. I will be cleaning up cocoa in my kitchen for years. Woo! We did it! Stop it! This is so cute. Look at my cute little cake. I'm making something that I have wanted to make for probably 20 years, but haven't because honestly, it scared me a little bit. I'm making that classic Christmas traditional cake meant to look like a fallen log. It is the bûche de Noël, or Yule log cake. My Yule log: chocolate sponge cake, mascarpone espresso cream filling, chocolate buttercream bark, marzipan pine cones, sugared cranberry and rosemary, meringue mushrooms, all topped off with a nice little layer of powdered sugar snow. This is the cutest thing I've ever made in my whole life. This is a cake that might be best made over 2 days, though I'm gonna try to do it in 1. The order of operations today, I'm going to start with some of the decorations, making candied cranberries and rosemary. Next, I'm gonna whip together the sponge cake and bake it, roll it, and let it cool. While it's cooling in the fridge, I'm gonna make the mascarpone whipped cream filling. I'll take the cake back out and fill it, toss it back in the fridge for a couple of hours. And in that couple of hours, I'm gonna make the cutest little meringue mushrooms, marzipan pine cones, and buttercream that will coat the entire outside of the cake. If all goes well, later this afternoon, I'll be putting together, decorating, and finally tasting our Christmas Yule log cake. I'm starting with the parts of this cake that have to rest for the longest, and for me, that is sugared rosemary and cranberries. These are meant to look like little berries and twigs on the top of the cake. To make them, I'm just gonna melt some sugar and water together until it simmers, let it cool for a few minutes, toss in our cranberries and rosemary. I'm gonna put this whole concoction on a sheet tray to cool for like 30 to 45 minutes, and then I'm gonna lift the rosemary and cranberries out of the sugar syrup, put them on parchment, and leave them to cool in the fridge. The goal is to get them super sticky over the next hour or so that I can dust them with some granulated sugar. Now it's time to get the cake in the oven. This is a relatively simple sponge cake, and I'll include the recipe in the description box below. What I like about this sponge cake is it doesn't require you to buy a jelly roll pan. Since this is actually a rolled cake that we're making, you can just use a normal 18 by 13 baking sheet. It also makes a jelly roll that's slightly bigger than traditional, so we can do some interesting branches on our Yule log. The cake's pretty simple. The first thing we're gonna do is separate our whites and our yolks. So 4 eggs, room temperature. And the important part here is to ensure that you don't get any yolk into your whites. And as per usual, my kitchen helper thinks she gets an egg. So I'm gonna pause for a second to give her an egg. I paid the egg tax. So we've separated our whites and our yolks. I'm gonna set these aside. Get started mixing our dry ingredients. Cake flour, salt, baking powder, baking soda, cocoa powder. Give these a whisk. Our oven is preheated to 350 degrees with a rack in the center of the oven. Okay, dry ingredients done. Now we're gonna move on to the egg yolks. So all I'm gonna do is whisk these to break them up. And then on the bench, I have 2/3 of a cup of sugar. I'm gonna use about half of that in my yolks and save the other half for the whites. Mix in vanilla. Instant coffee if you're adding instant coffee. Buttermilk. And our melted and cooled butter. Okay, that's mixed well. Now we combine the dry with the wet. Looks perfect. Okay, off to the side with this, and we're gonna tend to our egg whites. Room temp egg whites, a little bit of salt. The salt is abrasive and it helps to break the egg whites up. We're gonna take these to stiff peaks and we're gonna whip in the remaining bit of sugar. We have stiff peaks. Next up, incorporate these two together and then we're ready to put it on our sheet tray and pop in the oven. So I'm gonna use a little bit of the whites into the cake mixture just so that I can temper this cake mixture a little bit, thin it out a little bit, make it a little bit easier to incorporate back into the whites. Okay, now we're going back into the whites and we're gonna fold all of this together. And it's looking fully incorporated. So now onto our sheet tray. I only have parchment on the bottom of the sheet tray and there is no butter on the sides. We want a little bit of resistance for this cake to be able to crawl up the sides of the sheet tray. So I'm gonna pop it all on. Okay, using my offset spatula, I'm spreading it all the way out. Okay, this is gonna go into the oven at 350 for 10 to 15 minutes, but I think it'll take closer to 10. Perfect, into the oven it goes. Okay, while the cake is in the oven, I'm gonna get our towel ready. So this step is for rolling the cake when it's hot coming out of the oven. The goal is to train the cake that you want it to exist in a roll shape. So we're gonna actually make this kitchen towel nonstick, and then right when the cake comes out of the oven, we invert it and roll it, and we'll let it cool then in the rolled shape. But to ensure that it doesn't stick on the kitchen towel, I'm gonna use some cocoa. Sometimes the top of a sponge cake when it comes out of the oven is a little bit moist, and so you don't want it to stick to your kitchen towel. Looks pretty done to me. So now I just take a spatula along the outside. Now we flip and pray. Not bad. Okay, parchment comes off. And now we roll. Okay. So not the tightest roll of all time, but also not loose. Perfect. Now I set this aside to cool. I want to leave it on the seam side, and we're going to make the filling. On to the filling for our Yule log, and I am making a pretty basic whipped cream, but I'm making it a little bit more stable by incorporating some mascarpone. So because this is getting rolled into the sponge cake and then it's going to set up for a while in the fridge, I don't want just whipped cream because I find that whipped cream actually soaks into the sponge cake and then you kind of lose the layer. So one thing that helps that is to add a little bit of a heavy fat dairy product. I'm using mascarpone. You could also use creme fraiche, you could use sour cream. So in my mixing bowl, a little bit of mascarpone, heavy cream, pinch of salt, a little bit of vanilla. I'm gonna give these a quick whisk before I add the sugar. Everything's incorporated nicely, so now some powdered sugar. And then I'm just gonna whip this until it's like medium, almost firm peaks, but not quite that far. I want it to be spreadable, but I also want it not to just leak out the sides of the cake. So I just got an idea. The whole point of this Yule log is to make it look like it's kind of a decomposing log with mushrooms and other things growing out of it. And I have never seen this white unless it's snow. And I want this to be a little bit of a darker brown color. I'm actually gonna add a little bit of coffee just to kind of muddy the color a little bit. And I think the coffee flavor in this pretty simple mascarpone whipped cream will be nice. So I'm just gonna scrape down the sides a little bit, make sure everything's getting incorporated. I'm actually gonna give it a taste too, see how that coffee flavored it. Nice. Okay, this is ready to spread in our cake when our cake is cool. So the key here is just unrolling pretty slowly. While I've never done a Yule log cake before, I've definitely made Swiss roll cakes before, and I know that they have a tendency to crack. So if that happens, we're just gonna do our best and work around it. But one of the ways to preclude them from cracking is to unroll pretty slowly. That's exactly what you want, is for it to hold its shape. Ooh, pretty decent sized crack there. That's okay, it's on the inside, so we should be able to roll it okay. So I'm just gonna fill this cake then. And I'm gonna start with less cream than more. You don't want a super heavy layer here. I wanna leave a little bit on the end because likely some of it's gonna kind of squish out. Okay, I've got a pretty even layer. I've got it all the way here. Okay, we're gonna call that good. So now we fold back up, and instead of rolling with the kitchen towel inside, I'm just gonna use the kitchen towel to create a nice roll, but I wanna keep that on the outside. Really gentle, because you can see I've got a pretty decent sized crack there. Again, seam side down. I will be cleaning up cocoa in my kitchen for years. Okay, not bad. Keep the seam side down, and I'm gonna use this, so just really gently on the back of a cookie sheet. Woo, we did it. Okay, this is gonna go in the fridge and it's gonna cool for a couple hours. In the meantime, we're gonna make some cute little meringue mushrooms. Time for our meringue mushrooms. So into a very clean mixing bowl with a whisk attachment of my KitchenAid, egg whites, pinch of salt, tiny little bit of cream of tartar. This just stabilizes everything, and we whisk. Gonna slowly add in the granulated sugar. Okay, they're looking pretty good. I'm gonna add the powdered sugar in. I can do this all in one go. Start it slowly and then bring them back to firm peaks. You add this much sugar and it's gonna knock some of the air out, but don't worry, it will come back. Yeah, that's a great firm peak. So on the bench beside me, cookie sheet, we are ready to start piping. My largest round piping tip inside of a plastic piping bag, and I've just folded the top over to make sure that the mess stays inside the bag instead of outside of it. So now we're going to transfer our meringue mixture into our bag. Just about every tool I have in this kitchen is dirty. So I'm looking for something plastic that won't pierce the piping bag, but will allow me to, in one go, spread the meringue down. Just trying to get the air bubbles out. Spread it down the piping bag a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna start with mushroom stems, and I've not done this before, so lots of tutorials watched, but never tried at home, so we're gonna learn together. Mushroom stems, so as I understand the stem, hold it above the parchment paper, gentle squeeze, try to get something that looks like a stem. I want a variety of different sizes here. My first one was the best one so far. I'm gonna start doing some caps because I wanna make sure I have both some stems and some mushroom caps. That feels like a little too big for what I have going on in the stem department. See how tall I can get. Whoa! Okay, I'm done. I'm just gonna stop playing now. Just on the tops of the caps. Okay, into the oven these go. They're gonna take like 45 minutes to an hour. I'm at 200, so I'm gonna check them in 30 minutes, but probably take about 45. I want them to peel cleanly off the parchment paper. That's when I know that they're done. Into the oven they go. Sugared cranberries and rosemary in the fridge, ready to roll in sugar. Meringue mushrooms in the oven, drying out. Now I'm gonna try my hand at a marzipan pine cone. This is wild. This is the most work I've ever put into a cake. So I have some marzipan. You can find this in the baking section of your grocery store. It's just basically a really super sugary almond paste. And the idea here is to mix it with a little bit of cocoa powder to turn it dark, and then to form these pine cone shapes. Cone shape-ish is to take this really attractive looking log shape and turn it into a pine cone. So I'm just taking these almonds and overlapping and just kind of sticking them into the marzipan. How'd we do? Pretty cute. Let's do one more. We did a thing. Off to the side with our pine cones. We're getting there. This is the final component, I think. Making buttercream now. 8 ounces softened butter, cream, vanilla, tons of powdered sugar, cocoa powder. So I'm just first gonna get our butter going, creamed, light and fluffy. It's lightened in color, gotten pretty fluffy, increased in volume. Now I add the rest of the ingredients. Cocoa powder, pinch of salt, vanilla extract, and I'm gonna start adding the confection sugar just little bit by little bit because I don't want to get sugar all over my kitchen. So I'm gonna do a scrape down, and this is looking a little thick for my liking, which is fine. So I'm going to incorporate a little bit more cream before I add the rest of that powdered sugar. So with buttercream, you can kind of always adjust the texture with more cream, more powdered sugar. It's a little bit of a dance. That feels good enough for me for now. So our cake is still cooling and chilling in the fridge. It's gonna be probably 30 minutes before we ice the cake. So I'm gonna keep my mixing supplies out, a little more cream. I've got powdered sugar close at hand. Stick with this consistency and we'll see what happens when I start to ice the cake. Time time to finish the sugared cranberries and rosemary, I think. So I have a Tupperware here that I think I'm gonna be able to jostle the cranberries and rosemary in, but I actually don't know. I've not done this before, so we're learning together. So I'm gonna put some sugar, that's 3/4 cup, in the bottom of this. I'm gonna prep my parchment for the other side. Those look really nice, kind of snow covered. Okay, move these off to the side. Okay, I think I'm just gonna kind of gently pop these guys in. Exactly as I'd hoped. They look pretty cute. So this feels like a job maybe for my fish spatula. I don't want to touch them necessarily because I feel like my hands will take the sugar off. You guys, how cute. How cute are our little decorations? Okay, these are going off to the side. Our mushrooms are not quite done, but I think we can start decorating. On the bench, buttercream, all of my decorations you can't see, but they're up here. Offset spatula, serrated knife, fork, regular knife, all of the tools, all of the nerves. This is where the cake is gonna go. Is this big enough? I think it's gonna have to be big enough. Yeah, it's gonna have to be big enough. So let's unroll our cake. Let's see how we did. Ooh, looks pretty good. Okay, so the way I'm gonna do this is, this piece is not gonna get cut into because there was a crack in it. So I'm gonna take a little bit off the end just to make a clean cut. Ooh, look, we did a good job. So I think I'm gonna trim a little bit off this side as well, just because I wanna be really gentle with it since this is the side that cracked. Oh my gosh, that looks so good. Look at that roll. Ah, this is so fun. Well, I mean, it's fun for now. Okay, so now what I wanna do is I'm gonna create a couple of branches, and I wanna make sure the length of my cake will fit on this. Transfer this very gently to my serving tray. And then the intent is to cut this a little bit on an angle so that I can have a branch sticking out. So I'm gonna make the top one a little bit smaller. Okay, so now I have 2 rolls. And there, does that look like a tree? Now comes buttercream. Ah! So first, we affix. I feel really happy with this. I'm gonna wait until the mushrooms are done. I'm gonna put this in the fridge and I'll be back to you in a few minutes when we're ready to completely decorate. I cannot believe how cute this is. This is the cutest thing I've ever made, and I'm about ready to make some mini mushrooms, and I could not be more excited. So the mushrooms took a lot longer than I expected them to. They took like 1 hour and 20 minutes, and I wasn't still sure that they were done because they were still a little bit tacky, but they're coming right off the parchment paper, which is great. So now all I've got to do is affix the tops to the stems. Oh, so fun. Okay, so I have a tiny little paring knife, and you can do this with chocolate, but I just have some buttercream left over, so I'm probably just gonna use buttercream. I think I'm gonna try to carve off the top a little bit and then find an appropriate size. Oh my goodness. You guys, come on, come the heck on. I can't, look. Is that not the cutest thing you've ever seen? Ah, it's adorable. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, another good top. This one. Okay, I think that's a good start. I'm gonna leave my mushrooms off to the side. Okay. First, I think we need to put in our cones because they're kind of the biggest. So this guy that's lying flat, I want on the side of the cake somewhere. Trim one of these down a little. Mushroom time. Let's hope I can get him to stand up. This guy's special. Where should this guy go? Maybe right there? Yeah. Are you kidding me? It's so cute. Okay, a couple final touches just because I can't not. I'm gonna do a tiny little bit of grated chocolate. Grated on my bench, I'm gonna sprinkle it on the, oh yeah. Sprinkle it on the log, just for some more texture. And then, very last, snow. Stop it. This is so cute. Look at my cute little cake. Oh, I'm so happy. This is the cutest thing I've ever made ever in my whole life. It took me all day long. There was 1,000 components and I wouldn't have it any other way. All of it looks so cute together. The mushrooms are adorable. The cranberries and rosemary really add some color to this, which is kind of cool. I love those pine cones, and my Swiss roll worked really, really well. I'm gonna include all of the recipes in the description box below, but it's time for me to cut into this, and I almost don't want to. I'm so proud of it, but we're gonna taste it. This is just so cute. Okay, we taste. It's not all that sweet, if you can believe it. The buttercream is super sweet, but the rest of the cake is really nicely balanced. The recipes that I chose work really well together. None of them are my recipes. I'll include all of them in the description box below. I haven't been this proud of something that I've made in a really long time. I'm not super crafty, but I think I might have proven myself wrong today. I just love this, and I love it because I've been scared to do it for my whole life. It came together beautifully. It tastes really good. It is cute as heck. And honestly, I spend so much time in the woods looking at kind of exactly this scene that it's really satisfying to recreate. So I don't think this project is for everyone, but it certainly is for me. This might end up being a yearly tradition. This is just a stunning little cake. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it when you spend your time here with me on this channel. If you liked this video, please give it a like. Let me know in the comments down below if you've ever made a Yule log cake or if maybe today's video inspired you to try it. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I look forward to seeing you here next time. Cheers!